Welcome to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with our friends at Dundeel Motors, where more Irish drivers find their next car from a trusted dealership than anywhere else. Why? Because Dundeel's trusted dealer program means verified dealerships and the kind of backup that matters, like warranties and history checks, giving you confidence from your very first click. And welcome from the north side of Dublin, where we're sitting in a passenger version of the new Toyota Land Cruiser. Paddy, your initial thoughts on it?
Well, it's very comfortable. I'm very, very pleased to have chilled seats. I'm a big fan of chilled seats.
Yeah, they're good for this time of year.
They're good for lots of things. And
what do you mean, lots of things?
Well,
What?
a bit of ventilation is lovely. As a man.
Oh, that's what I thought you meant.
Yeah, it's exactly what I meant.
I don't think ladies will kind of understand what we're... Yeah.
Well, maybe they would, but
Well,
summer and...
the only thing is, sometimes if you've never tried air-cooled seats, sometimes it does feel almost like you've wet yourself. But it's the latter stages because it's now cold.
Yeah, exactly. We're probably losing people already, but yeah, it is a fabulous thing, and it's a good place to start this week because it's the first one I've seen, and you're the first person I've seen driving one in the wild. The new Land Cruiser passenger version as well, which will be a rare beast, I suspect.
As it drove towards you, it's quite an imposing vehicle. What did you?
It's got a lovely sort of retro vibe. It's square, Tonka toy like.
Yeah.
Nice colour as well. It's a sort of a gunmetal grey colour, although someone with better views of colour would probably describe it as something else. But it's an imposing vehicle. It's a big vehicle, but not obnoxiously big, I think. It looks utilitarian.
Yeah, that you can't get, by the way, the commercial version in that kind of sand colour that you would have seen as the launch car. You can only get that in this. Now, this car in Ireland, with the 2.8 diesel engine, which barely has 200 brake horsepower, but it will tow 3.5 tonne, we need to say, is about €140,000 before you put an extra onto it.
I was not expecting that.
That's a lot.
I thought you were going to say early 100,000s.
Now, there is a Lexus PHEV engine that they have that they could put into this vehicle. Now, it probably won't tow as much, but that would bring the cost significantly down.
And they haven't looked at putting that in yet. It's just around.
Not at the moment. It does exist. There's probably a reason as to why, but I'm just thinking, who is your target customer now for a commercial? Now, look, it was never a big seller in Ireland. Toyota Ireland said they used to sell maybe 6 passenger versions a year, right?
So, a commercial version, do we know the price on that?
It's about 75.
Excluding the VAT?
No, that's all in.
All in, okay.
And we were, before this new model anyway, at least, we were the biggest market in Europe for commercial Land Cruiser in Ireland.
I mean, where I live, they're everywhere because farmers swear by them. They're great for getting in and out of fields. They pull tractors out of trouble at times because they are exactly what you need if you're going to drive yourself into trouble.
I was lucky enough to be at the drive of this vehicle in Morocco, so I a first-hand experience of what this thing can do, and it is unbelievable. Like, it is wasted sitting in a car park here in Portmarnock.
Yeah, exactly. Incidentally, my first time ever in Portmarnock in my life.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't know why that is the case.
Did you ever go to the beach? Did you ever go to Tamangos?
Well, I mean, I had
the
Bettystown and Laytown beside me, so the
Yeah.
beach, no, and I was never in Tamangos.
I've never been to Tamangos either.
I would have thought you'd DJ there at some stage.
I was asked to DJ there once because the DJs and the bar staff and the night staff went on strike, and I was asked would I go up and be the DJ while they were all striking outside, and I said, so you want me to cross a picket line of my fellow DJ peers? And they were like, yeah, what's the problem? I was like, no. So I never actually...
be the scab.
I'm not going to be a scab. But my point anyway on the Morocco versus the tarmac here is all these, not all of them, but most of these drive modes here are gone on the commercial.
What I am seeing, and I know we're not on video, is a lot of buttons, physical buttons.
Yeah.
And that's quite a good thing because there's a mixture of the screen, which is not obnoxiously big, but there's physical buttons. So all of the select modes to activate the four-wheel drive and the various drive modes are all physical buttons. The air conditioning are all physical buttons.
Yeah, mode select. There's 3 USB-C charging ports. There's a HDMI input.
And what does one do with the HDMI input?
I'd imagine
Could one put an Xbox in there?
Yeah, or if you're a vet trying to show someone a PDF of an X-ray. I don't know. I actually don't know.
I'm currently playing with the camera.
By the way, the camera. So when you're driving over terrain, you can have a chassis view of just your wheels. Now, it's not exclusive to this vehicle. But it's impressive, isn't it? It's impressive.
It is. So look, €140,000. You're in. Are you in Range Rover territory anymore?
You're getting very close to it. I mean, you're beyond Range Rover Sport, but this thing will never die
and not break down.
But equally, it's a very agricultural sounding 2.8 diesel engine. It's all about the torque for towing. It's not about speed. It's clattery.
And you could also keep it for 15 years.
Yeah, apparently, Toyota say a lot of Land Cruiser owners don't actually sell them. They pass them down into the family.
Yeah, I could see that. Because it's not something that's going to give you too many headaches, I suspect. There's a mixture of electronics, but there's some good old-fashioned mechanicals in there as well.
Yeah, I have had comments on YouTube about on the video of this car about rust in certain markets, and not this model, but where we are, Toyota are bulletproof, like.
So yeah, as you say, this is going to be in small numbers, but
Yeah.
showing you the capabilities, and the commercial one will be the big seller.
Yeah, well, again, it is expensive. A neighbour of mine has always had Land Cruisers, and the company he works for has always had Land Cruisers. I think they have double digits of them in a fleet, and they're not getting the new one because of the cost.
Video of this will be next week.
Yeah, probably. I do have the one in Morocco, which, to be honest with you, I'm not going to be able to better that because that is Atlas Mountains.
Right. Okay.
No roads left.
But the Irish impressions will be similar, but not without the extreme off-roading.
This might be the Chelsea Tractor review version of
Portmarnock version.
Portmarnock of
yeah. Just want to trace our steps backwards a little bit from last week, where we had talked in circles about the L-Rock RS,
yes,
pricing, etc. But now we can talk about the driving impressions. I did watch your YouTube video, Nobby on Cars. Talk us through the things you couldn't talk about at the time last week. So the how it drives and its road manners.
I suppose how it drives is it's very, very grippy, but it's very predictable grippy. And I kind of mentioned this in the video. We're now starting to see Alpines, Ioniq 5Ns. You can make an EV fun. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. And what I found about the L-Rock was it was very predictable. It was very kind of samey, if that is a word. I mean, it's just a faster, grippier version of an L-Rock. I think that's a fair thing.
I mean, I got that impression from watching the video, and that you think that maybe there's a level that Skoda need to go to either justify the badge, or create a new, maybe more hard-edged version that is worthy of a rival to Ioniq.
Give me some gear changes. Give me some fake engine sounds, a lap timer, just something to kind of like the Fabia Monte Carlo probably has a lap timer in it. I just think they need to just do a little bit more now and bring it on a bit. And
I felt that with the Enyaq RS. I felt they really missed a trick, and I felt that it was I really wanted to like it, but when I got into it, it was just all right, okay.
It's just a quicker Enyaq.
Yeah, and I think people who would be buying that version would expect, as you said, a little bit more, that little special sauce, which it doesn't really have, and it's in danger of becoming a trim line.
Yeah, it kind of is a trim line, to be honest with you. It's not a bad trim line because it comes with pretty much everything. I mean,
that's what you said. You said that you would actually probably just have it instead of the sport line because you're paying a small bit more, but you're getting so much more in terms of spec that it's nearly just a better trim line to go for.
Thing like matrix headlights and stuff like that as standard. Yeah. So look, it is what it is. It's a bright coloured car, but I think if you think of it as a trim more than anything else, now it does have dynamic chassis control in Ireland as standard as well. So that and the matrix headlights alone are probably worth $3-4 grand.
Yeah, and look, it is a good looking vehicle, and from having just driven the Sportline, it is a capable thing to drive. But that's going to be the question. People going in, where they're going to go, right? Do I want the sort of garish colours? And I presume you can get it in slightly tamer colours if you want, rather than the Mamba.
Yeah, you can.
That grey colour, which you described really well in the video, it looks good, but there's so many things activated in terms of tax that it suddenly becomes a very expensive colour.
You've got to get a pack with it that pushes it beyond the threshold, and
So I mean, it's a funny one. I think it's a bit of a watch this space from Skoda. It would be an interesting thing to ask them what their plans are with RS, because in effect they brought you to show you the heritage of RS, which was a much more driver-focused history.
Yes. And to be fair to them, they are doing that trip in Wales in July. I can't do it. I have something else on. But it's all the heritage vehicles. It's the Enyaq RS and the L-Rock RS on rally roads in Wales.
Wow. What a spin.
So they're they're keeping their powder dry for that. I suspect. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't make that one.
So look, I suppose to round up the L Rock, if you were going in with your few quid, you're thinking your monthly payment, what L Rock are you having?
I think either go for the not quite the smallest battery, but maybe the next one up. Get that lounge pack, whatever it's called. You get the kind of grey interior with the orange seat belts. It's only 700 quid. I think it's quite reasonable. I couldn't talk my father into doing it, but do that or get an RS. I mean, yeah, the Sportline is still a little bit cheaper, but it's marginal, and you're getting so much more. And have a look at the monthly repayments and all that stuff. They probably are close.
All right. I want to talk to you briefly about where I went last weekend.
Yeah, you arrived here with magazines. Car magazines,
yeah,
I should say.
I was in England, so I actually bought some car magazines because they don't cost 40 quid each. So I did have the usual Car and Evo and all those. But what I have here in front of me is an auction catalogue from where I was last weekend. Anglia Car Auctions, which, if you remember your Top Gear history, they have it on the wall. The three lads in the original series went and bought a classic car each at Anglia Car Auctions, and it was something that I went to last weekend with two friends of mine, and it's something I would encourage anyone to do if they just are a bit of a loose end over a weekend.
So you jumping around there. Sometimes you come back in the same day. Is that right?
Yeah, I've done that before. Newcastle was the last one I went to, but this was Stansted. Flights were 30. We booked them a while ago, 35 quid each. Nice. I think they were. So in and out of Stansted, and this was in. It's not too far from Norwich. This is about an hour and a half away from Stansted. Rented a car. Ended up winning the rental car lottery by getting a Volvo XC90.
Which was that?
Well, yeah, I didn't book it, but between the three of us, that's what we landed on, which was nice. Yeah. So look, classic car auctions, for anyone who hasn't been at them, they're especially in the UK, are just a wonderful thing because you have an incredibly eclectic mix. These aren't necessarily, your Model T Fords. These tend to be in and around the 1960s or 70s upwards, much more in terms of the retro cars, if you like, but properly interesting vehicles, and there is the real potential to pick up a bargain if you had your wits about you, and some of the cars that were on display here were really, really excellent. I mean, in particular, some of the Bentleys. There were two Bentleys there, a 1996 Turbo Ore and then a 1990 Turbo Ore, and both of them went for under €10,000. In particular, the 1991, which I think I can show you here, was really good. It was an incredibly good car. No, it's not there.
So do you have to say, look at the Saab 9000 Turbo.
The Saab 9000, that was a 1991 Carlson Turbo. Now, Carlson, named after Swedish rally driver Erik Carlson, who lended his name to what was about 225 horsepower of Saab 9000, which at the time was quite a bit of power, going through the front wheels. That car was, I think it went for $8,000 in the end.
Now, do you have to sit on your hands and be totally still, or like if you move, have you bought a car?
Well, you have to put down your £500 deposit to get your number. No, to get in is fine. It's free. There's no charge at all even to get in. You buy your brochure for a tenner or whatever it is. You put down your £500 deposit on your credit card, and that would give you a number which allows you to bid. So you're not going to be in a position of scratching your nose and having bought a car.
I really want that Saab. Did it sell?
It sold, yeah, it sold. There was two Saabs. One was a €9,000 T18, which was a car which had been produced by Saab with official parts, if you like. So they had put that up to about 330 horsepower in that car. That was no reserve on that. Again, it went for about £7,000 or £8,000. But then the Carlson was a really nice one because it was a proper factory produced car. Little tatty, but huge potential in that one. That went for, I think, £8,900, which was now
just
again,
before you skip on in there, the 1994 Escort RS Turbo, 7 sterling, 7.7.
7.7, yeah. Now the Ford stuff is going for big money.
Yeah.
Any of the Ford stuff at the moment is going big, and also uniquely enough for the UK, any of the Rover, MG, Austin stuff goes for a lot more money than you would find in other markets. So
quirky buyers,
surprising prices. This there was a Volkswagen Beetle, a yellow one, which was absolutely beautiful.
It's a very
1974.
Ted Bundy colour now, in fairness,
Yeah,
Paddy.
it is. Went for I think that went for about £4,500, 5,000. But like, so some of the stuff is, the particularly banal and mainstream models. Things like Ford Granada 2.9, Ford Granada was really nice as well. This 1990 Bentley though was really special. That was it had proper service history. It had a bit of an issue with the rear brakes, but less than 50,000 miles. That would have been a car which would have been huge money.
Yeah.
It was on personal plates, and that went for £9,000. And the sense of occasion about that car, really good MOT history. And the thing about going there is you can look up the MOT site in the UK, and the MOT gives incredible detail. Nothing like our reasonably half-assed NCT at times.
Yeah.
But the MOT gives incredible detail on on fails, passes, and that showed a huge string of passes as well. So
It's lovely as well. I mean, I know we're in the age of you could do all this online, but just having the physical magazine in your hand, looking at taking your own time doing it.
well, if you go onto that car site, so www.angliacarauctions.co.uk, you can look back at the catalogue as well and see what they went for. Often that doesn't happen in a lot of the auction sites. You can go back and look at it and see what they went for. So that is a nice feature as well. So that ran over 2 days. So there was a Saturday and a Sunday, but yeah, some of the models we only stayed for the Saturday. But, little quirky stuff. 1992 Volkswagen Polo bread fan. I think that was £2,000.
Mark IV Golf GTI. This one would have still had the Recaro seats stitching on them at that point. To guide product, 2.5 to 3 grand.
Yeah, this Porsche Boxster, which I'd put up on Instagram on the day, went for £9,000 on the day. But an absolutely beautiful example of a very early Boxster. So really clean car, hadn't been tampered with at all. But a lovely thing. The car I really liked as well was this 2000 Alfa Romeo 145 Cloverleaf. Beautiful example. And I think it went for tiny money. I think it
What's
went
tiny like?
It's like under €2,000.
Oh my God.
Or £2,000.
So can you stay there for the whole day? Can you eat there? Can you?
Yeah, I mean your heart and won't thank you afterwards. It's bacon buddies and
Right, okay.
and the likes. This would have been a place that years ago would have been a sea of smoke. But even standing there inhaling the fumes from some of these cars, you're probably taking a few days off your life.
And do you? So is it a mixture of traders at this and everybody? Or?
Yeah, a mixture of traders. It's a great day out, and that's I suppose is the point I'd like to get across. Is for if you look ahead, the next one of these I think is in late August. I think it's just before September. It's like August 27th or 8th.
Okay.
So yeah, if you plan ahead, just book a flight. You could do this in a day, 100%. But it also, if you wanted to get the 2 days and get the full experience, because some of the cars obviously were on the Sunday, and then obviously they would also have a huge motorbike day as well. Now I wasn't there for the Sunday for some of these, but there's a 1995 Jaguar XJR, so 30 years old now, fabulous engine, in pretty good condition. There was another Boxster, and then there was a 911 as well. That convertible, which went for £8,900.
Yeah. The problem with Porsches in Ireland now is the VRT calculator and things like Honda S2000 and stuff you'd want to buy quite a few years ago now at this stage, they took all the calculators off for those cars. So you've no idea until you rock up and you've bought the car. You do have 30 days or something to return to the country, but that's not very practical. And my only experience was once doing it with a Mazda MX-5, and the lady tried to tell me that it wasn't on the system, and I was like,
computer said no.
I didn't want to be that mansplaining guy. I said, would you mind just checking, see if there are another variant or something, because it's definitely there. And she did find it, in fairness, but the alternative was revenue were going to come back to me with a price.
Oh, which is worse. Yeah. So look, I think for if you were doing it, I think it's safer to be going for stuff that's over 30 years of age, because at least you have some certainty in what the price is going to be. Yeah. It is a bit of a lottery if you're going for cars that are 15, 20 years old, despite the fact that the prices on them are very attractive. But one to risk for. I'd finish off on a car which is a very rare thing, which is a 1991 Volkswagen Astra GTE. There are very, very few of
A
those
Vauxhall
left.
Astra GT, you mean?
Vox-
You said Volkswagen. You Volkswagen.
Oh my God,
Volkswagen
Vauxhall
in your
Astra.
blood.
No such thing. Vauxhall Astra GT. Of course, an Opel Astra. Also, they had an actual Opel Monza GT SE
Nice.
there, but someone had put some ridiculous paint on it.
That Astra GT, actually, I had a black one of them in a toy car version as a kid. I hope they're all still in the box in a box in the attic somewhere, because GTIs, Golf GTIs, all kind of things. Well, that's a different kind of day out, you know.
And interestingly enough, I don't know if I can find it here, but there was a Ford Escort that went, a Ford Escort in Mexico, I think it was, that was in absolute heap, like as in
Needed everything
falling
done.
apart in pieces, and it
Yeah.
went for £17,000. And I mean, it was in bits. But
And it's funny because I'm just back from a Ford press trip. Literally landed from Iceland a couple of hours ago, and we were chatting last night on the bar about, oh, guys, would you not think of Scotland for a press trip? And we just got chatting about. I said, and bring some Ford Heritage vehicles, and it was just a straight no. And I think that was because you're going to remind people of the good old days or something. I don't know.
But I did exactly that years ago. Would be quite a number of years ago before. In Mondello Park, Ford did an event where we drove RS200s, Capri 2.8 injections. They had all of the old stuff
Right.
to drive on a circuit.
And I think if I'm right here, the second dealership in the UK ever for Ford was in Scotland, and there's some connection with some version of a Model T, and as a result, there's a bronze statue of somebody in Scotland to do a Ford. Look it up. I mean, you'll get more sense out of it than what I've just said. But Iceland. Do you want to know some fun facts about Iceland? So at the moment, it doesn't get dark.
Yeah, I've been to Iceland.
I was obviously 2 hours of darkness during the winter time. For the Icelandic people are 40% Irish.
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
That is true. And a friend of mine who used to work for an airline there told me, he lived there for quite a while, he told me that to water down the gene pool, the government of Iceland give you €65,000 if you settle down and marry one of their beautiful women and have children with them. And I was like, what? Like, where's the catch? He said, I don't know. And then some months later, I was interviewing Darragh O'Brien for a radio show, and he said, oh, actually, lads, I'm off next week to do a couple of gigs in Iceland. I said, oh, Darragh, wait till you hear this. And he looked at me as the intelligent, large man that he is. He said, are you sure that's right? I was like, well, this guy who lives there is Irish, told me. And he goes, I need to check that out. That's too good to be true. 65,000, and and anyway, it turns out it wasn't true. But there's only 400,000 people there. So they do have an app. So if you have an encounter with someone in a bar, and let's say the night's gone really, really well, and you're like, look, I'd love to see you again, whatever it is, they have an app that they can check to see if you're talking to your cousin, who you don't know is your cousin.
Oh, okay.
Or technically your sister, although, I mean, obviously you'd know if they were your sister or your brother. But yeah, they have an app.
Okay, so tell us why you were in.
So I was in Iceland because the Ford Ranger is now a plug-in hybrid, and they wanted to show you how it gets on in the rugged terrain of volcanoes, dormant, thankfully, at the moment, and fjords and all those things. It was a Ford and a fjord. So essentially, the plug-in hybrid can do everything, kind of, that the diesel one can. So it can still tow 3.5 ton. It's got 697 Newton meters of torque.
Wow.
It's the 2.3 EcoBoost engine, 10 speed. Payload is 940 kilos, so it's not actually a ton, even though they kind of said it was a ton.
Wow. And I mean, is it tax wise, is it more efficient for us than the diesel?
You would. I had a look at the Ford website and I was finishing off my video. So the cheapest version of this PHEV is 67. Well, sorry, the Wild Track is 67,000. And then the Storm Track is nearly another 12 grand. So I thought, okay, well, at least the benefit, because obviously you can't claim the VAT back on petrol here. So I don't know why.
Is it aimed more at the leisure
Lifestyle?
buyer now, because they do
Yeah.
certainly exist?
Like, it's only 43 kilometer range. So now Ford again say 50% of your Ranger audience, that's enough for them in a day. You can also charge up to 7 kilowatt off the back of it. So you can use power tools, you can go camping, you can
okay, so
camp
it's a
off grid, you can power a fridge.
Very expensive power bank.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it, yeah.
And so talk us through the drive, what was involved. Obviously, Iceland is it's an incredibly scenic place.
So the guys who did all the B-roll, that is the nice footage that they give us when we land, of drone shots and shots of the waterfalls. They were able to do the whole lot 20 minutes from Reykjavik city centre. That's how close everything is. You very quickly just go from, not massively tall buildings, but there's a fjord. So they did a mix of off-road stuff. We went through rivers, wading through rivers, 800 millimeter wading depth on it. Did ridiculous climbs up and down, used hill descent control, put it through its paces that it will never get to do on a building site or anything else like it in Ireland. So, I can verify that it can do all that stuff. But the couple of things, so the 43 kilometer range is before you put anything on the back of it or put other people in it. And then when that battery's gone, you are using a 2.3 petrol engine versus a diesel.
I don't like being cynical, but sometimes I can't help it. Is this an exercise in tax efficiency as much as an exercise in
for Ford or for the end user?
Yeah, for the end user or both.
Well, yeah, I think like Ford or and every car company is having to do this is to lower their emissions, and I think that's
they get at lower emissions. As the consumer, you buy it, you pay a little bit less in VRT, and your annual motor tax is less.
You can charge it and run it for less.
But realistically, at that sort of range, I suppose. Look, if you're a private user and you just like the look of the thing, and there's plenty of personal trainers who have them, and have their kettlebells and logo on the side of it.
Well, I haven't published the video yet, but I literally said at the end, maybe if you don't need the full capabilities, but you just like this kind of vehicle, you're the perfect person.
Well, that's what I'm thinking with this, yeah.
So, yeah, and look, it actually still rides very well. Perhaps rides better than your typical pickup truck because there's a little bit of weight on the back all the time with the battery.
Are Ford surprised by this new trend towards them in a European and an Irish and UK context?
If they are, they wouldn't tell you. They don't really give the impression that there's, I wouldn't say anything wrong, but equally I was at a Nissan event last week, and Nissan financially aren't exactly the great place, and it was business as usual, so.
You remember the sort of early 2000s when Mitsubishi L200s and Nissan Pathfinders and Navaras were reasonably popular for a time.
Outlander was a huge thing here.
Tax changes made that more difficult. But it seems like they've sort of started to creep back in, and I'm not sure when that started. But we're now seeing, Rangers and Raptors in particular, and they're much more frequent and being used by a variety of people who don't necessarily care about the open back or.
No, but another point that was made to us at the presentation was the beauty of the Ranger and vehicles like it is, especially if it's a double cab. It can do the school run. It can be the family vehicle at the weekend, and equally you can use it as a tool then during the week. And actually, if you are using that as a business tool, same as the Grenadier Quartermaster, the prices are very expensive, but if you're using that as an assistance to your job, it's actually not that much.
Yeah, exactly. And look, from a safety point of view, I don't love them because I wouldn't.
If you get hit, but same. I mean, I'm very conscious of this thing that we're in, the Land Cruiser. You don't want to, this has every safety feature under the sun, but you don't want to be hit by one of these vehicles.
You're also sitting, as we look over the end bonnet of this, it's about the height of a 4 or 5-year-old. You
wouldn't see if a small child was in front of this now where we're sitting, you wouldn't see them.
Yeah, and so I mean, that would be my concern for the proliferation of those on streets, but hopefully people will buy them if they really, really need them, more so than just for fun.
Yeah, but the main markets for these vehicles, like obviously America, it's too small. They'd laugh at that being a pickup truck, but markets wise in Europe, they're number one absolutely everywhere. UK, Ireland, all the main European markets, Australia, and you're talking like their number one market share and vehicle for like 10, 12 years. So,
we're a bit of an afterthought in this thing. As a continent, even as much as a country. So.
But there's no doubt it's a vehicle that will help Ford's bottom line because people buy them and need them.
We'll take a quick break, but after the break, we're going to be talking all things Nissan Leaf. Right. Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, which is brought to you by Dundeel Motors, home of the Trusted Dealer Programme, helping you buy with confidence from verified dealerships. So, Mark, the Nissan Leaf is back.
Yes, it is.
And back with a much better shape and a much better array of numbers from watching your video on this yesterday. I watched it sitting at a Circle K with a cup of coffee. And if anyone needs to learn about the Nissan Leaf, a great video by Mark on Nobby on Cars on YouTube. But people have an image of the Nissan Leaf.
Yep.
it was obviously the OG mass-produced electric vehicle. The first one was a bit awkward. I do like alerting people to the fact that I was the first Irish person to drive a Nissan Leaf.
Oh yeah, you were. You were.
Around a car park in Japan.
What
Now,
was the range then?
120, 160 on a
Car
good day.
park in Japan.
Yeah, I flew to Japan. I drove around a car park and flew home, and had all the jet lag.
Did you get business class on the flight?
Oh, yeah, business class. I stayed one night. Had the funny toilets and all those things where you press the buttons and plays music and sprays jets. But yeah, I flew home the next morning. So yeah, the first generation Nissan Leaf was incredibly radical at the time. You know, this was
Yeah.
groundbreaking stuff.
700,000 of them they've sold.
Yeah, huge numbers. And then the Mark II was obviously a bit more worthy and still groundbreaking insofar as we were at a time of range on other cars, which wasn't brilliant. But it just seems like everything else has caught up and accelerated past the Leaf. The shadow mode charging became a bit of an issue, as I watch a Leaf there, taxi drive past us there.
Oh yes, yes.
They became a little bit antiquated very quickly, but Nissan looked like they're back now with quite a radical change to the design.
Yeah, well, like you hit the nail on the head there. You know, they were the only option really for such a long time, and I think obviously Nissan know better than anybody that they needed to come back with something that could at least by 2025 and 26 and maybe even 27 standards still stand up. Like a reference point for me is still that Kia EV6. It's out 5 years, still a very relevant car. If you can create an EV in today's modern world that can be relevant for 5-6 years, I think that's a really big part of how successful your car is going to be. So the larger battery officially now, it's 604 kilometer range. Now, one thing I will say is I learned at the Nissan Leaf trip, the WLTP figures that you hear quoted for all cars, around the world, is based on a speed of 46 kilometers an hour and an ambient temperature of about 13 degrees Celsius. So if you're not doing those things, no wonder when you pull your EV onto a motorway, it doesn't do what it said it did in the brochure.
But what I found was very interesting, and sorry if I cut you off, but you had said in your video about the fact that they give figures for motorway speeds.
Yes, so they've basically worked out that you'll have about 2.5 hours of range on a motorway. So when you're driving to Cork, you could definitely do that. And the official figure quoted...
Yeah, I see it here, 330 kilometres at 130 kilometres per hour from your video.
Yeah.
Which, so you're getting in, for me, that's getting in
it's
to
good,
a car
isn't it?
in Dublin, driving it,
well,
slightly above the speed limit on a motorway. And getting there with 30 kilometres of range left.
Yeah, and as you say, you can't even do 130 in this country. And then you have fast, decent speed charging. So if you get the larger battery, it's it's 105 kilowatts for the smaller battery. I think from memory it's 150. So you can recover up to 417 kilometers. Look, these are Nissan figures in just 30 minutes.
And so 174 horsepower or 214 horsepower in terms of power outputs.
Yeah.
The tyre size thing was interesting. You had said in your video that they have either 195 200s or 235. So different tyre sizes depending.
Different tyre widths
depending on the model.
Yeah.
52 kilowatt hour battery or 75 kilowatt hour battery. So interesting.
McPherson front suspension, multi-link on the rear, so should be pretty good to drive. If for anyone who's ever been in a Tesla, the games you can play, the buggy racing.
Yeah, I saw that.
My kids, when I have a Tesla for a week, my kids will go to school earlier because when we pull up outside, they can play that game. Now, Nissan have the exact same. I actually thought that games company was Tesla. It's not. It's a different third party. But the only difference is in a Tesla, you use the steering wheel and the brake to drive these cars. In the Nissan, it's on the screen. I think you don't get to use the wheel. That's the only.
So the car is shorter itself, but it has 50-litre bigger boot space, droppable floors.
Yeah, it's a little bit wider. It's actually not as tall as the outgoing Nissan Leaf. There's only like a third of an inch in it or something, but it's still a fact. So decent boot, droppable floor, vehicle to load, battery management. So one of the big things with the Nissan Leaf was there was a thing called Rapid Gate. And basically, if you had a Nissan Leaf, it didn't like being fast charged twice in one day.
Oh.
What
happened?
It just wouldn't charge at the speed it should. So it's now liquid cooled, thermal management. You can get a heat pump on the larger battery, but it still does clever stuff. Like it will use excess heat from the radiator and stuff like that to heat the cabin, even if you don't have a heat pump.
How would you describe it in terms of the styling? Would you? I mean, obviously, go and have a look at Mark's video on Nobby and Cars, but for me, I really like the rear. I see what they've
Datsun?
done there. Yeah, they've done little bit of Datsun there,
Yeah.
and I just think it's quite a pretty car now.
So we're going to hear from the designer in a few minutes, and he'll explain the inspiration for it. But yeah, he basically said it was from 90s games and stuff like that. Were so maybe if you're playing Gran Turismo in the late 90s, you'll see a bit of that in the car. So
One point you'd said about the warranty: 3 years, 100,000 kilometers in the car isn't huge, is it?
a bit low, isn't it? So
Yeah.
so there's three different tiers for the warranty. They've got the 3 year for the everything in the car. Then they got 5 years for electric components like the inverter, the DC charger, all that stuff. And then you've got the usual 8 year. But I did think it was a bit low, yeah.
Yeah, look, battery wise, 8 years, 160,000 kilometers. The 160,000 kilometers bit for me isn't huge either.
No.
Like I know that the 8 years is right. Okay, people think 8 years, but lots of people do way more than that in 8 years.
That's it. And I think maybe as time goes on, people will extend them when the brands themselves see that actually no, your batteries are doing okay. I've had quite a lot of comments this week from older Leaf owners who've had them for a while, saying I'm still on my car. It's 6-7 years old, 93% state of health.
I'm looking at a Nissan Ariya drive past us here, and I'm wondering how does that compare?
So it's based on the Nissan Ariya platform. It's also shared with the Megane E.
Right. Okay.
Is that what it's still called, or E-Tech?
E-Tech.
So if you've driven that car, that should give us an idea of what the Leaf will be. Now, I have an Ariya in our house as our family car, so I've driven that. It's actually all right. It's more comfortable in the front than it is in the back, to be honest with you. I find it a bit choppy. But same platform, so, that's quite a large car, so they've managed to make something a little bit more sleek on the same underpinnings, I suppose. Yeah, it's look, I'm yet to drive it. That's going to be the big test, obviously. But I think on paper, all the bits they've done to it, it kind of stands up. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, for me looking at it, it looks really good. I wasn't expecting it to be as pretty. I thought it would be another iteration of what was a fairly tired design, but it looks like they've torn the rulebook up, and there's touches of retro in it, which I really like. And it's still quite car based. It's not another, jelly mold crossover.
Yes.
It's the still touches the car, and even sort of watching the video. Why it's so important. I was sort of using the reference of you walking around it to sort of get an idea of what it looks like in terms of size and dimensions. So a lovely looking thing, really. And what's it like in other colours? Did you see it in other colours?
Only had it in that teal colour.
It's this traditional Leaf colour, really, isn't it?
Yes, it's kind of like it's teal, it's greeny blue, but I liked it. A lot of these colours you've got to see in the flesh. And again, we say it every week, I think, nearly, with all the blacks and the greys and the silvers. Be brave. You can get this kind of beige colour inside the car and the higher trim. One thing I did notice, so the tops of the doors, of which you're touching in the Land Cruiser now, Paddy, are fabric in the Leaf.
I saw that you were suggesting that people would spray some sort of a Scotch Guard or something on it to avoid grubby fingers, fake
if you're
tan.
getting one, yeah, and especially if you are a taxi driver and you're going to get one, you know better than anybody. You need so you won't be able to essentially wipe them. They're not plastic, leather, hard plastic, whatever. It's comfortable resting your elbow on it, but yeah, it's not going to be the most durable, especially in that kind of beige color.
Nissan need a win.
Yes.
They really need a win. I mean, their numbers internationally and their financials don't make pretty reading. They're entering now a segment where they used to have it obviously all to themselves. They've fallen away because rivals were better and massively better. The price point as well, like Leaf has laterally become quite a cheap entry point because...
Yeah, it's currently about 21, 22, isn't it? For the
so
last one?
they're suddenly going to come out with a model where it's got to be late 30s, right?
That's why they have 4 different trims, essentially. So they want to not alienate the 700,000. That's a nice customer base to be able to go back and go, hey, we've got a new Leaf. Would you like to buy one? But equally, if you've bought a Leaf even in the last 2 years and you want to change now to the new one, if the jump is, let's say you paid even 25 grand, if for the highest spec is 40, That's going to be a 15 jump. I know everything's gone up in price, and it also, it has to undercut the Aria, I suppose, as well. Even though there are definitely bits of this that
Yeah.
will outperform the Aria in terms of technology and stuff.
I don't know if it came up at all, but has the shadow mode conversation been raised at all? As in, what will happen? Because obviously the charging points here can't keep producing shadow mode cables, especially as the newer ones come on stream. So, what will the future be for those Leaf owners who are trying to get around the country?
Well, I'm constantly getting spam emails from agencies asking would I like to advertise a Chatamo adapter on my channel. So they can be bought.
They do exist, and
They
they
do
work.
exist. I believe they work. I've never actually tried one because I always think these things are scams when people are trying to touch you or talk to you. But yeah, we won't. Like, how long are those? Any new stuff going in? They don't have them.
Because it was Renault for a while as well, but now literally the only cars you see trying to use them are Nissan Leafs, of which there are quite a few still driving around. But I think the maximum they can charge at is a
50,
50.
Yeah.
So not only are they sitting in a spot, but they're also going to be there for a while.
Well, what drives me mad is when there's a few chargers together and someone in a Leaf, and yeah, I know someone's going to go, well, how do you know it wasn't free when they... If the newer chargers that do up to 150 connect to your Leaf, it's costing you more to use them. People don't realise this. Use the slower. I know it doesn't look as shiny, but your Leaf can't do that speed anyway, and you're paying more.
Yeah, true.
People don't realise it.
Well, look, while you were there, you caught up with Nissan's designer. What's his name?
His name is Giovanni, as in Trapattoni.
Very good.
Now, he's from California, but he's based in London, and we jumped into the new Leaf and sat side by side, a bit like we are now, Paddy. Well, we've all heard of comedians in cars drinking coffee. This is now car designers in cars drinking coffee. Giovanny Arroba from Nissan, you are the Vice President of Design.
Yes, nice to meet you all. I'm Vice President of Nissan Design here in the UK, in London, yes. I just came from Japan. I was 7 years in Japan as a senior design director, and I was very fortunate to work on mini cars like the Aria, but also the Leaf from its inception.
You gave me lots of questions in my head when you mentioned Japan. So you spent 7 years there. You were 4 years in London previously, was that?
Previously, I spent 4 years in London when we were working on third generation Qashqai and the Juke. And actually, we penned the Aria here in London in the studio, and then I moved to Japan to follow it through to production amongst a few other cars.
I have an Aria at home, by the way. It's our family car. Good car. Thanks for designing it. How far ahead is Japan in an automotive sense, I suppose, but also even you mentioned their convenience stores. How different a world is it away from Western Europe?
It's just a different planet. I mean, Japan. They take global influences, but then they turn it into they tailor it to themselves, and then it becomes a whole new thing, like the convenience store. So spending 7 years in Japan, I really love the convenience of the convenience store. They're on every corner. You just pop in, you can get anything. You can get a beer, you can get a hot dog, you can get clean T-shirts. But there's something about that, and then actually that's an American invention, the 7-Eleven convenience store, but Japan just transformed it into something else. And we were kind of inspired by that because of the efficiency and convenience, but it's also there's a pop culture element to it. So, we thought when we launched this car, we would love to have a little pop-up convenience store. Because it's very relevant. I mean, ever since after COVID, Japan has seen the most amount of international tourism ever. And clearly people are coming to Japan and absorbing that culture and taking them back with them. So when we designed this car, we wanted to bring in some of this Japanese DNA. We wanted to bring in some of this kind of vibrant culture that's going on. So that was the essence. But as Nissan is a Japanese brand, we thought, why not celebrate the Japanese DNA as a Japanese brand? So even let's say Nissan in Japanese, ni is 2, san is 3. So that's why maybe you'll see some cars like our GTR race cars have the number 23. So when we were designing the Leaf, especially the tail lamps, lots of crossovers or lots of EVs out there have these just linear horizontal light blades across the back. It's become very popular, but almost there's a sea of that now. So how do we make it more distinctive? How do we make something stand out and be more impactful? So we created a graphic for the number for 2 and for 3, and this actually is now a holograph on the rear, and it actually pixelated holograph, so it almost has an 8-bit video game quality, which gives it again another bit of a gaming charm to it. But
You did mention in your presentation as well, there's a lot of 90s inspiration. You
Yes.
grew up in the 90s.
Yes.
What were you, what gaming console were you at, Giovanni, in the 90s?
actually, I think I was on a Nintendo.
Okay, I thought you might have said Sega.
I was a Super Mario guy.
Okay, well, that's no bad thing. Of all the cars people ask you about when you say you work at Nissan, is it the GTR people get really passionate about, or equally an EV like this that has kind of changed?
I've been working for Nissan for a long time, and what keeps me excited about working at Nissan is its breadth of cars that we can work on. As a designer, in Japan, you get to work on a GTR on one hand, and on the other hand, we have little tiny K cars, these tiny little mini city cars, or you can work on full-size American, D-segment trucks, cars like a Patrol. And each car has its heritage and its personality, and so for us, Nissan has an element of charm, an element of performance, an element of adventure. So it's as a designer, it's quite exciting.
If location is so important in property, when it comes to EVs, it's probably aerodynamics.
Yes.
This car has no wiper. Can you just explain to people who, this does come up in rainy Ireland and probably the UK, what, from a designer point of view and a drag coefficient point of view, how beneficial is it to not have a wiper on a modern EV?
Well, in the case of this car, I think you're degrading the car by I can't give you the certain amount of miles, but the range drops. So I know that as we're going through this tipping point of parity to ICE and electrification, as far as price point and range, it was very important to us with this platform and this battery pack to get the most mileage out for the customers, to avoid range anxiety, and to bring buyers in confidently that are not just in the city environment, but commuting between longer distances. But in the case of this car, it's, I think, sleek enough that
The rain will fall
the
off.
rain will fall off.
What are the key differences, or are there key differences between designing an ICE car and an EV? Or is there a lot of
There's a lot of
crossover?
Well, I mean, there's obviously a lot of crossover, but I mean, an EV has a pretty thick battery pack. Until maybe 2028, we'll start seeing ASSB, which is a thinner battery with more range. Maybe then the proportions will change again. But right now, packaging the flat battery pack obviously raises the H point up. But also, batteries are not cheap, so aerodynamics plays a big part to get the range. I mean, we could put a big battery, but then it'd be a much more expensive car, and then you can compromise some of the aerodynamics because you have a huge battery. But again, then the price of the car will go up. So in the case of this one, is we're trying to hit that Goldilocks zone where you've got price, style, and range all within this sweet spot. So it was always a balance, and working obviously together with R&D and how to shape the car optimally with some impactful style.
Yeah, and there is lots of impactful stuff. Hopefully by the time you listen to the podcast, the video will be out. It is a car that has surprised me in lots of ways today. For example, in the glass roof, it says Leaf. I don't think I've seen that in a production car before. I've seen these different opacity, all right, but not a model name.
Yeah, I mean, the electro-dimming roof really changes the experience and the atmosphere in the car, because unlike the rolling shade, you can you can open up the back 2-row passengers to let light in and keep the front open, or vice versa. So it increases the functionality of it, but also just the movement of opaque to not opaque. We wanted to design, something attractive and compelling. So, and again, going back to the Japanese DNA that we were playing with, in Japan, they do beautiful abstractions of nature and beautiful kind of, even though it's maybe a very classical art, because it's abstractive, it looks so modern. So there's this art form called kasumi monyo, which is basically an abstraction of a cloud. And it's got very beautiful radiused edges in a kind of asymmetrical fashion that it reminded us of the way we're trying to treat the graphics on the tail lamps or on the front lamps or even the machined wheels. They have this really nice little looped machine kind of racetracked radius. And again, we brought that into the shape of the way the electrodimming roof graphic is shown. And then we've also brought it in other places, like the little rubber mat where you have the wireless phone charger has the Kasumi Monyo graphic. It's quite subtle, but if you know it's there,
You can't unsee it. Yeah.
there's also a story to tell and something to resonate. I think what we're trying to craft is a sense of Nissan-ness and bring some charm to the design. So.
Well, if I may say so, you've taken a car that has sold extremely well, but you've also kind of turned it on its head, which some would say maybe is a brave move. You look at a lot of models, famous, iconic models throughout the years. It's evolution rather than revolution. It's fair to say there's a bit of revolution in this car. Is that fair?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I'm glad you felt that because, it's a revolution. It's a reimagining of Leaf. We called it a reimagining of Leaf. I mean, achieving that range with that aerodynamic efficiency and keeping all the roominess, keeping the headroom, keeping the luggage space, or expanding on the luggage space. So it's a smaller footprint, more agile, but actually more interior space and just overall more efficient. And hopefully, people will reflect and see that the design has also evolved and become a little bit more chic, more urban, more sleek, and more sexy. So.
And you've made a car not as long as the previous version when everyone else is making cars bigger and bigger and bigger. So even that is quite unique, I think. It sounds like your career with Japan in terms of physically being there is not over. Would you?
I've been working for Nissan, and it's a Japanese company, and it turned, my wife's Japanese, so I'll be going back.
You'll be back.
I go back and forth to Japan often, yes.
Amazing. Okay, Giovanni, thank you very much for talking to us. Good luck with the car. I'm sure it'll do very well, and we'll see another 700,000 units down the road.
I hope so. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with Dundee Motors, where more Irish drivers find their next car from a trusted dealership than anywhere else. Why? Because Dundeal's trusted dealer programme means verified dealerships and the kind of backup that matters, like warranties and history checks, giving you confidence from your very first click.
I'm stopping you there, Mark, because I see a beautiful,
oh my God,
beautiful Renault 5 GT Turbo.
He's looking at us, we're looking at him.
Drive into the car park, exactly, yeah.
We should just go over an interview.
Hopefully he pulls up in between us here.
Can we get it? Can we give it a rev there? Hang on a second. We might get clocked.
Sorry, lads, I'm a bit nosy. I have one ordered.
Have you?
And we're looking at your car.
We're looking at your car. Give us an L blip there.
Oh,
Is it a GT Turbo?
yeah, she sure is, yeah.
Right. What's your name?
Kevin Duff.
Okay. Kevin has just walked into the podcast.
Jeez,
no, you're okay.
Grand.
So, what's the story with that car? Where did you get it? How much did you pay?
I brought
If you
it
can
in
say.
from the UK 2 years ago.
Right.
We've
just
19 sterling for it. Yeah.
Wow. We've literally been talking about car auctions in the UK earlier on. So, what were you able to?
I think it was off this site. We spotted it.
Right.
Me and my friend. I had one when I was 22. Hence,
Makes you
I'm
feel
having
young
the
again.
midlife crisis now.
Yeah, yeah. We can relate. And obviously you didn't have, so classic VRT, so you weren't getting any nasty surprises when you...
There was a nasty surprise. Yeah.
Was there?
Yeah. There was a nasty surprise. They were looking for it.
Right.
It's 35 years old now. They came looking for it, yeah.
So you wanted the car, so you're happy enough to pay up anyway.
Yeah.
So what's it like owning a car like that?
It's great, yeah. We get a fair few looks, all right, yeah. People haven't seen them in a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's very few. I think there's only, that's the Raider edition. It's a special edition. So there's very little of them left around.
And we have to ask the question, this man is obsessed with the new Renault 5.
Yes.
What do you think of it?
I think they've done a good job, yeah. They've done a good job. It looks well.
Would you be
They
tempted?
kept the style a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like Kevin has also gone with the Clio Williams colours.
Yes, I've got the bronze wheels on it. I did. That's what when I picked them out, I bought them up in the north. I thought it'd be a nice look to it. Yeah, the Renaults look, the Williams look. Yeah.
Well, you can get quite a similar colour, and there is the gold strip around the top of the Renault 5. So you have a passenger Land Cruiser ordered? Or
I have, and they're coming in.
Have you heard? You know how much it is, don't you?
They're 56 without the VAT.
Oh, that's commercial one.
Commercial.
Okay,
yeah.
sorry, I thought you meant this.
These are 150 Gs, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And my friend Mark Cassidy works in Dennis Matney's.
He's getting you a deal, is he?
Well, no, it's a commercial vehicle, but I ordered it in October, and they said January. But
No sign yet.
No son yet. Now, have you got a vehicle like that now?
I had a Land Cruiser, Toyota Land Cruiser, yeah.
Have you still got the tow bar off it? Because the
Yes.
tow bar in the new one is 1,000 extra.
Wow.
And we asked at the time, could you put your old tow bar from the last gen Land Cruiser on the new one? And they were like, I need to come back and check. We'll let you know. I still don't know the answer.
Right.
So there's a little back pocket trick for you.
So what do you think of this new one?
It looks beautiful. Yeah, I really like the look of it. The style is very good. Yeah, but yeah, the price was a bit of a thing. Yeah.
So for someone who had to incur that jump in price, now it is a more sophisticated vehicle. Were you kind of shocked by the jump, having had the last?
Well, everything has gone up, hasn't it? Like everything has gone up. So I wasn't really shocked, but I knew it was coming. But I had the 151 Land Cruiser, office unit like this.
Yeah.
This with the seats in the back.
Right.
And I had to change around a few vehicles just to sort out. So when I got that, when I got my little toy here, I don't need that in the week. I didn't need the Jeep on the week. I only need it for work now.
Right.
So that's why I've decided to go with the commercial vehicle.
Don't need the seats.
I
Yeah.
didn't need the seats with a family and all. I can bring the kids around in the back in the Renault. It's fine, like, you know.
What colour did you go for?
No, black, midnight. It's a kind of a midnight black, or
Right.
there's a special name to it, black, but all black, like,
Yeah.
you know.
So you're effectively buying a car off the plans here, have you?
Yes.
Driven one?
Yeah, bought it off the plans.
So you haven't been able to drive it even?
I haven't even drove, no.
Wow. Isn't that mad?
You kind of know what you're getting with a Toyota Land Cruiser.
You know what you're getting with a Toyota. Yeah, you know what you're getting, yeah.
That is true. Well, I've driven this in Morocco last year, and there's nothing they can't do. But there's also nothing the last one. I asked the guys there when we were doing the Atlas Mountains, because they had the last model kind of following us, and I said, is there anything that car can't do that this one now can? And they were like, are we recording? And I was like, no. And they were like, no.
No.
The exact
Right.
same.
No, I'm really looking forward to it.
You've been waiting a while.
I've heard they're coming in next month. The first of...
Well, you might as well wait now for the...
But that's the thing about the reg. I
Yeah.
was a bit of... I'm wondering about... Now I'm going to have a 252 reg.
Yeah.
Instead of having a new reg, which I thought I was getting, like, you know.
Right, so, okay. So that bought it...
How would you feel about that? Like?
It's just it is. I mean, you can't... It's out of your control, I suppose, in the sense you can't wait till 261. It's still a new reg. It's only a number.
Plus, it's the Land Cruiser, which has one of the best resale values of any car, any time.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
someone that a few lads have been saying to me, it still holds its value. I know lads that bought a Land Cruiser last year, and they're selling it for more now. A lad up the road there,
Land Cruiser, an investment. Who knew?
and he's getting more money than he actually paid for it.
Right. So
He's driven it for 6 months.
we have to ask Kevin, what do you do that you need a Land Cruiser?
I'm an electrical contractor,
Okay, so you...
so I'm beyond building sites, and I do carry a bit of stuff around the back.
Towing.
But I could be into an empty field at times,
Yeah.
setting up compounds and sites, and could be very mucky and down a dirt track. You
And
know?
was there any other vehicles that you would look at, consider?
No, I've only driven Land Cruisers.
Wow. Because they're only saying last week, people just... If you buy a Toyota, you're probably not going to
I've
leave.
had an 02, I had an 05 short wheelbase. They were both short wheels. And then I had the long wheelbase 151. And now this is my first ever brand new Jeep.
Any problems with them?
Never,
Wow.
never.
There you go, Toyota.
Good an endorsement as you can ask
Yeah,
for, really, isn't it?
And she's took a few dings as well.
But you weren't driving at the time.
No.
All right, Kevin. Well,
Go on, lads.
thanks for your impromptu appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, it was funny that I seen this pop down. It's like, oh my God, there's my new Jeep.
Yeah.
But
There you go.
we can have that. Sure, let us know.
Go and buy another toy. Right.
Take it easy.
Thanks very much. Well, that was very nice of Kevin. We don't even have a surname for
No.
dropping in.
Kevin would be a great regular, actually,
Yeah.
on the podcast. And good, great to get an actual customer of the car that you're sitting in
Yeah.
in real time. But all his Renault 5 GT Turbo was
nice.
gorgeous. Yeah, painted in a sort of a Cleo Williams homage, navy with gold wheels as well. So really, really stunning car. But yeah, nice to meet a proper petrol head.
And what a day for driving a car like that. But wasn't it interesting to see, like, that guy, so you had one when he was 22, and the Renault 5, he didn't have a bad word about it to say.
No, well, he is an electrician as well, so it's good that he is, because that car would have required a small bit of work. So hopefully he saved himself a few pound by doing it himself.
Yeah. Well, if you'd also like to do an impromptu appearance in the Drivers Public Podcast, you should email us, driverspublicpodcast@gmail.com. Next week on the podcast, we'll have been driving some more cars. You can tell us about the Honda Jazz.
Yeah, I'll try and get excited about the Honda Jazz. I am in the facelifted Kodiaq, which I know is a car you've driven already, but I'll give you my Dublin to Cork and back several times next week impressions.
That's always good to know about, and because that's a good route to be able to compare, no matter what kind of car it is, but any kind of EV is what I mean.
Exactly, and the Dacia Bigster we can have marks 800th impression.
Yes, it's been quite a while. I asked Dacia, did they have the camping pack? Have you ever camped in one of them?
No, but it would be interesting to do so. Have they got? I know it's on an optional extra on it, but I think it would be wise for them to do that.
We were trying to find out, did they have one for the Bigster, or was it just the Duster one that fits in the Bigster? So essentially, it's a bed you can use to camp on the back of your car. The only thing about camping in cars, the roof is very close to your face.
Yeah, it is, and it also can get a bit sweaty and a bit stinky.
Yes,
so,
and if you had a nightmare and you sat up, you might break your nose.
I did sleep in the Volkswagen Caddy, California.
So, yeah.
Did you sleep in that?
No, I just...
Yeah, that was...
Put the windows
mildly unpleasant. I think your camper van needs to be a certain size, but I think with the Dacia ones, certainly with the Jogger one, it's really a tent as well. There's the option of a tent that comes out the back, so that is plenty more space. And
you are seeing more of them, like roof boxes. Even on the Ford Ranger trip, I was just back from Iceland. They had one of those tents on top of because most of these cars can. It's only 75 kilos though, so how do they take like a fully grown man? That's the other thing I don't understand.
Well, it wouldn't take me then in that case.
No. But we have learned a lot about you on this episode.
Yes,
between air-cooled seats and sleeping in
I need to leave some behind.
Yeah. All right. Look, thanks very much for listening. You might share the podcast with someone who's also into motoring and might enjoy it. And thank you as always to Dundee, our fantastic sponsors. We'll see you next week.